All right, give me a minute. All right, give me a minute, please. I'm trying to share my screen, but it's okay. All right, let me share my screen now. All right, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, I can see your screen, and I'm sure the other person can see.
Can you guys see the slide now?
Yes, I can see the slide.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So today, we're not really going to be talking about something technical, right? We're talking about communication, right? In its own sense, communication is also technical. However, communication is something that really distinguishes a lot of people from each other. All right. For a lot of people that are growing their careers, especially in tech, right? Communication is something that, is very, very essential. You see that a lot of people that find it very difficult to communicate, they find it harder to get into like higher positions, right? And that's what we're basically trying to solve with this particular seminar. So the agenda for this seminar is we're going to start with why do you need to communicate, right? Why do you need to communicate? And then we're going to go to, what happens when communication goes wrong within a team. Then we're going to discuss how testers communicate and why communication is important for testers, right? We're also going to discuss how to spot a communication challenge. And because how you can get better. Can you mute? All right. Thank you for that. All right. So why is there need to communicate, right? So the way development works right now, and the way we have our team set up, we have a lot of people working in an agile environment. And what that means is a larger team that has different moving parts are brought together, right? And you guys are trying to constantly hit a moving target at all times, right? You have a lot of things going on. Role that a QA embodies in a team, right? In a development team, is sort of holding everything together to make sure the whole process is good, right? Because we're not only testers to assure the products, right? We're also there to guide the process as well. So in that agile environment, there are a lot of things going on, and then you really, really need to communicate if you are on a team that practices agile, which a lot of us actually do, right? And then communication can be avoided, right? As a QA, right, you're going to, if you already have any experience in the field, right, you're going to realize that there's really literally no way that you can avoid communication, right? Talking to people. There's no way you can avoid this, right? Because a lot of people are going to be looking forward to what you bring into the team for them to be able to make their decisions, right? Your input to the team will determine a lot of things, right? Regarding the roadmap, the timelines, and all of that. So there's no way you would not, be able to communicate those things in a way that carries everybody along, right? In some cases, you have to talk to the clients, right? Sometimes you have to talk to the customers, interact with them, right? And you have to be able to convey those information that you get from those discussions across several departments. And that is what makes communication very, very important, and why you need to learn how to communicate. And then the fact that people always assume the information, right, based on how they understand the situation, right? You have people assuming things, right, within the team, outside of the team. Even your customers are making assumptions, right, that, okay, this is how I expect it to be at the end of the day, right? But then you have to be able to provide enough context to all of those people who are assuming different things, just to ensure that everybody has the same assumptions, right? And those assumptions have been clarified, right? So these are the things that make it necessary for you to know how to communicate. So this is a very popular image, right? That we see. Can we all see this image?
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So this is a very popular image, right? That sort of shows a customer that wants something, right? And then we can their own way. The first customer, right, in this. On this project team, do you think you'll be able to meet the timeline if you go up with what the project leader understood as the project? Would you be able to complete it with the timeline that was communicated to the customer at that point? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Actually, no.
All right, because by the time you do what the project
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to inform you that you're muted.
Okay. All right. I was actually muted. I don't know why. All right. Okay. All right. So by the time you're delivering what the project leader wants, you'll find out that by the time you get to the customer says, no, this is not what I want, and this is how I want. Automatically, the project timeline is already messed up, right? So so we can see already, like, without even going through all the different steps, right, of what the engineer designed, right, then how the programmer wrote the code itself, right, then how sales, describing it, it just shows you the level at which, people's assumption takes some of these projects that we work on, and then we end up having different goals to start with, and then at the end of the day, we have a product that is not really what we want, right? And then we have like a lot of back and forth at the end of the project. And then you can even see that what the customer explained is not really what was really needed at that time, right? What they explained was not what's actually needed. What they needed was something different. So that shows you the extent to which communication is very important, and why different teams struggle, and then it seems like they are always getting it wrong. And this is majorly due to like breakdown in communication. So this is what happens when communication goes wrong. All right, so bringing it down to testers, right? This is basically how testers communicate, right? As a tester that you're on a team, you're going to have your product documentation, right? Your test plans, strategies, scenarios, defects, summary reports, and all of those things. Those are things that you use to communicate, right? Your test plan tells the team how you're going to go about your testing, right? Your strategy tells them what are the things you plan to do, and how that's going to communicate to a quality product at the end of the day, your scenarios and all of that. So that's one way that testers communicate. Also communicate through document reviews and feedback, right? So when you do like requirements documentation, right? And use cases, functional specs and all that. During the review of those documents, right? You as a tester needs to be in that space, right? And part of what makes the team agile is testing being part of the development right at the beginning, right? Is one of the core principles of testing, right? Being at the beginning of the whole process, right? While they're coming up with the requirements and the use cases, you have to be there as a tester. So that is one of the ways you communicate, by giving feedback in those processes. And also in meetings, right? For the daily stand-ups and meetings with management, you have, testers that also share feedback in those kind of meetings. And basically what that does is it gives you a way for you to communicate. So these are all different channels which we as testers, which we communicate with. All right, so we're going to go into the reason why communication is important for testers. The first one is very, very dear to me because it is something that a lot of people struggle with. Meetings and emails, and I'm sure you guys know the feeling when you're deep into work and then you have to go and be in a meeting, or there's a call going on, or there's an email you need to respond to. That really takes time from all the core things we do as testers, right? So this is why being able to communicate directly helps the whole process for testers, right? And then efficient communication also helps you to accelerate your testing. So when you have the things you want to test, right, being able to communicate, right, it helps you to get things done faster and get things done correctly, because like they say, direction is as important as speed, right? So it helps you to accelerate your testing. Also, communication helps you to reduce risk, right? Because it makes sure that the developer that is, developing the solution has the same understanding as you, right? You're able to communicate, the things that you want in the product, right? The things that you're going to be checking for, you're able to communicate it with the developer, which reduces the risk on your end, right? And as they say, one of the principles of testing is that exhaustive testing is not possible, right? So this communication helps you to reduce risk, and then you're able to focus on critical areas within the application. And then it also, so all of these things now drive quality in the application, in the solution, in the website that you guys are all building together as a team, right? So this is why communication is important to us as testers. And the first point, which is spending less time in meetings. I'm sure if those of us on this call, we are able to spend less time in meetings, I'm sure we'll have like very, very productive days. All right. So, knowing what is good for you, what communication does for you as a tester, right? You need to be able to understand when you're having challenges within your team. You need to be able to understand, to know when there's a breakdown in communication, and where you as a tester, right, you're mostly the person that keeps the team together. So you need to know when there's a communication challenge, and then you need to do something about it so that it doesn't deteriorate to the point where it affects you in your work and the quality of what you guys produce, right? So the first thing to see there is developers and testers, they act more like adversaries than teammates, right? If you see a team where the developers and testers, right, rather than being teammates and being eager to solve things together, it feels like one person is pushing blame to the other. Developer is saying, "Oh, this person is not testing my code properly." Tester is saying, "Oh, why are you developing what you have in your head? You're not following the spec." When it seems like everybody is just pushing blames, that's where you know that, okay, there's a communication challenge somewhere that needs someone to step in. Then also, when testers have a hard time knowing what test data to use and where it can be found, right? This is especially true for if you're working on a big project, right? You're working on a very large project, or in cases where you're not even working on a large project, right? But maybe it's a legacy project, and then there's so many things that you don't even understand, and then you need to find, the kind of right test data to use, right? And you need to know where to locate it. So when you as a tester, you're having a hard time, right, finding those things, you know that, okay, definitely there's a communication challenge there that needs to be resolved. And then when different people seem to raise the same questions repeatedly, right? When you're on a project, let's say you're on a stand-up, and then maybe for a whole week, right, you have people asking the same questions, right, about the same things. You definitely know that, okay, there's somewhere in between, there's a communication challenge. Maybe someone is not paying attention, or something is going wrong, right? And then you need to pay more attention to whatever is happening, right? And then testers are testing code and features before they are ready, right? So you see, it's just like let me say, if a farmer, right, is going to the farm, and then he gets to the farm and he sees that, oh, they've not even cleared the farm at all, right? And he's expecting to plant. That's the same thing where testers, you start testing, and then you realize that the feature is not even there, right? The feature has not even been, deployed. So what are you testing? Then you know that, okay, there's some gaps in the communication. Then when you find that defects are being reported over and over again, right? Definitely there has to be some communication challenge, right? Something is going on within the team, and that is affecting the way people are, working on those things. And then when testers are not aware of code that developers implement. So this one is a very major one, because majority of bugs that come in applications that we use are majorly where developers push code that testers are not aware of, right? There's an implementation that you're not even aware of it, right? There's no way you can even do a test case, or have scenarios for that particular implementation, because you're not even aware of it in the first place, right? So those are things that sort of mean that, okay, there's a communication challenge. So if you can relate to any of this, right? So that means you're in the right place, right? And we're going to discuss ways, to be able to solve some of these challenges as testers that we are. All right. So as a tester, how do you communicate better? How do you communicate better as a tester? All right. So, as a tester, right, I've already established the fact that as a tester, you are someone that holds the team together. And the reason is because you are a focal point in a team. So the developers look up to you, to be able to know, where issues are in the code they write. The product managers and then, other stakeholders look forward to, when you tell them that they are ready to go live. I guess some people are more concerned about, when are we going live? When are we deploying, right? Than, other things. But, based on, where the other teammates are, right? They all depend on you as a focal point in a lot of teams, right? So that's, so these are ways for you to learn how to communicate better, right? The first one being take notes and ask questions. Do not be afraid, right? Whenever you're in a team, no matter your level, whether you're a senior QA, or some people just say, okay, a tester is a tester, right? It just depends on, how much experience you have and, how much knowledge you have, right? So never be afraid to ask questions. Never be afraid to ask questions with whatever is going on, right? You see something, you ask questions. You see anything happening within the team, you don't understand this, don't be afraid to ask questions. It will make people see you as, you're eager to even help deliver a better product. And it's going to overall improve how people see you within the team, right? It also helps to improve your learning process, and it helps you to listen, right? When you take notes, it helps you to listen, because by the time you're taking down the notes, right, you start seeing what is actually being said, right, when you're taking notes, and then you can now use that to ask, better questions about the product. Then share a common language, right? This is especially important when it comes to being a more technical tester, right? Developers care about the code they write. They care about the languages they write the codes in. Product managers care about roadmaps. They care about deadlines and, those kind of things. So you as a tester, right, you need to be able to communicate with developers, right? So that means you need to learn, okay, what code are they even writing, right? What code is the developer writing? If you're not a tester that writes code, right, you need to care about, the code so that you can communicate with the developers. You can share in how they feel, right? When things happen on the product and all of that. So it helps you to become more empathetic to how people see things, right? When you learn more about roadmaps and timelines, it helps you to communicate better with product managers, right? So when you share a common language with different people within a team, it helps you in communicating with those different people, right? When you're doing, say, code reviews with developers, learning about the language which the developers use, right? It helps in that situation where you can, give suggestions, you can even understand, what is being reviewed actually, and be able to get more context. Then having clarity of product outcomes, right? One thing I always say is avoid assumptions, right? Assumptions are, they tell you something, right? Because of your past experiences, because of how you think, you already form a conclusion on that thing, right? Okay, they tell you, oh, we are going to test ABC. We're going to develop ABC, right? Because of your familiarity with that kind of product, right? You just assume like it's meant to work this way, and then you just go, right? But that's in a lot of cases is a very bad way to make assumptions, right? Because assumptions will lead to product failures in a lot of cases, and it also increases the product timelines when you don't meet your targets because you've already made assumptions earlier on that needs to be corrected. So the rule of thumb is whenever you have any assumption, be aware, first of all, be aware of assumptions that you're making, right? And then seek clarity. Always validate assumptions. Any assumptions that you have, right, that is not expressly written in the requirements, right? It's not expressly stated in the requirements that okay, this is how it's supposed to be, right? But based on what you saw, right, you just assume that oh, it's meant to work this way. That is always wrong until you validate it. So always validate assumptions so that you can have clarity on what the outcome should be. So the next thing is to engage teammates directly. So you ensure that developers also review your test plan. I know when people talk about reviews in product teams, what usually comes to the mind is, okay, we're doing a design review or we're doing a code review, right? Nobody ever says, oh, we're doing a test review, right? So this is very important because a lot of times, what you actually have in your test cases and your test plan might not actually cover the things that the developer has done within the code, right? So they help you drive clarity, right? You're able to engage them directly, right? When you sit down with them and then review the test cases, and they make sure like you're covering all the critical parts within the application, right? So when you engage them directly, it leads to more clarity. And, you also make sure to don't take whatever they say as, bad feedback, right? Just listen to feedback as ways to improve in your test process, right? And this would overall, sometimes your test cases would even give the developers more clarity into how a product is meant to work, right? When they start seeing like some of the tests that you've come up with, they start seeing things that they've not actually catered for within the code, and that helps to drive quality within the products. And then you should always deliver more context, and this speaks to when you're writing your bug reports or your test cases. More context is always better. And what I mean by delivering more context is, for for you to be able to give more information, right? When you are writing a bug report, right? A one-liner is never a good bug report. When you just say, oh, the application crashed. So that kind of thing, the developer would always be, and even the stakeholders are looking at it, they don't understand, what you're saying. So always deliver more context in whatever you're doing. So these are ways in which you can communicate better as a developer. As a tester, as the case is. So one other thing that I think a lot of testers need to do is we need to learn how to broadcast changes. And what do I mean by broadcast changes, right? Whenever you make a change to your test cases, so I'm going to ask the audience right now. I see we're 47 on the charts on the call right now. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Just a yes or no. When you make changes to your test case documents, do you inform the developers?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. That's a lot of yes. So it means like we have a lot of very excellent communicators. I've not heard a single no. Okay. All right. That's fine. As well, right? So it's very, very critical, right, for us to find ways to broadcast the changes, right? Find a medium. If your company uses Slack, or if it's email, or whatever channel you use, even if it's a call or during the product meeting, right? To just say, oh, okay, I've added one or two things to the things I'm testing for in this application, right? Based on these new things I understand, right? Do you care to, review it? Do you care to go through it? Or you can even just share that, okay, I've added these new things to the test cases, right? What do you think? That's sharing to the developer, sharing to other teammates, right? The designers, just so that everybody is carried along. Those things might seem like, oh, why do I need to? But you actually need it so that everybody has the same understanding. Everybody has the same context within the team. And people can really appreciate, the work you do as a tester. So the next thing is for you to prioritize bugs and then find solutions. So one thing that makes development easier, right, is making it easier to debug things, right? We all know that we try to make perfect software, right? But things happen, and then bugs get into the application, even while you're still developing, right? The process of prioritizing bugs is something that testers need to take more importantly, because when you keep throwing every single bug you see at developers, right? I've seen cases where developers just break down, or you keep throwing more bugs. Maybe tomorrow is release date, and tonight throwing 2-3 bugs at the stakeholders, right? The whole team is seeing it and they're like, oh, would we ever finish this project, right? That's where prioritizing bugs come in. And it doesn't mean prioritizing it alone. It means you taking the extra steps to detail your bug reports, right? And during that process of you trying to find, what's even the root cause of this bug, right? To find out, okay, something is not clicking. What exactly is happening at that point? Is this something that happens all the time, or it just happens as a one-off, right? Those are things that you can include in your bug reports that will make the people that are making decisions about whether they can go live or not. People that are making those decisions, it helps them to be able to make those decisions easier. The developers that need to fix it, right? They know where exactly to look for when they see a detailed bug report. So that's basically you finding solutions to those bugs that you're raising, and it helps you to form a better relationship with the teammates. And the last thing is make sure you participate in meetings and reviews, right? Always be present, actively engage within meetings. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Let people know the reservations you have and the risks that you see with what is being discussed, right? Let it be known, right? Let people in the team know that, okay, this person is actually in the meeting, and not a meeting or maybe a review session that, okay, they already know that, oh, you as a QA, we're having like maybe a code review, right? You just feel like, oh, QA should be in one part. I mean, those are things that happen subconsciously, right? They just keep the QA like, oh, no, you don't need to, talk here and all that. But once you start, communicating within those meetings, right, you start asking questions. I remember one of the earlier points that we made was on taking notes. And taking notes actually helps you with, being able to participate, right? But because you can actually go back to your notes and say that, oh, okay, we discussed this, some time ago, and this is actually important here, right? Let me bring it up, and then that helps you communicate to them, and everybody has better clarity at that point, right? So I try to make this very short because I know people would have different questions regarding the things they've experienced around communication in their teams. So we'll be taking it straight to question and answer. I hope you've been able to learn one or two things, and I'm absolutely expecting questions from you guys. All right.